Hey everybody, it's Kyla at the MJC, and I'm here to walk you guys through Section D of the Divorce with Minor Children petition. It is the last section before we reach the end of this petition, but it is a pretty long one, so this will be a relatively long video. But before we jump into that, as always, just a reminder that nothing in this video is intended to be legal advice. It's a video, so I'm not able to analyze your specific situation, to talk to you about whether the timing is right on filing a divorce, where you should file a divorce, whether you should do a divorce or a legal separation, whether you're likely to get what you're asking for in your divorce, what you should ask for, all of those kinds of great questions that you may have in mind really require legal advice. And so if you have, if you're located here in Milwaukee County, you can get legal advice, brief legal advice for free through the Marquette Volunteer Legal Clinics. If you're not here in Milwaukee County, you can contact your clerk of court to find out what resources are available in your area. All right, so D is all about the children in this marriage. So first, in this first section, we're going to put children you have together who are minor children. So that is children who are under age 18, 17, or younger. If you don't have any minor children together, you'll check none. If not, you're going to put the names of the children here. So John and Jane, as you'll recall from our other videos, have 2 children. And you'll write out the children's names. And it doesn't matter if your children were born before or during your marriage, you'll list them here, and either way. And you're also going to put birthdays for those children. And we'll do 2000. So there, so you've got children's names and birthdays. And again, a question we do get sometimes is, well, what if I'm not sure about the child's birthday? Again, we really, really would like that information. As I keep saying, the more information this form is missing, the more likely it is that you'll have issues down the line. So in an ideal world, you really want to find those dates. If the children are older, maybe you can contact the children themselves. Contact anyone who might have that information. See if you can get birth certificates. Any way to find that information. But again, if for some reason you're just not able to get that information, then you're going to put as much as you know. And when we say no here, I mean that's a relative term. You want to basically be able to say it is more likely than not. I think this is right, even if you're not 100% certain. But again, if you're not sure about that, you can put just the month and year, or I suppose just the year, but really, again, you want to have this information if it is at all possible to get it. So there you go. Get that information if you can. Not a lot of people have trouble with that, but again, everyone's situations are different. So that might also be a good thing to get some advice about if you are missing that sort of information. Here you're going to put any adult children you have together. So if you have children who are over the age of 18, those would go here. And again, you'll put their birthdays. You'll put that information there. If you don't have any adult children, you'll just put none in that first box. And one issue some people will run into is they'll say, well, we actually have more than 5 minor children, or we have more than 5 adult children. If that is the case, what we usually do is just handwrite the word "see attached" below that box, or type in "see attached" in the box, and then just do a Word document attachment where you include the same information about your other children. So if you have 6 kids or 7 or anything like that, you'll just basically do a "see attached" where you include the same information for all of your other kids as well. Last but not least, we have other children. So other children, this section is about children who were born while you were married, but aren't your spouses. So if John is filling this form out and he knows that, maybe he and Jane haven't been together for a while, and he knows that Jane has another child by another person, then you would fill this out. Or, similarly, again, it just wants children born to either party. So you're going to put the name of that child. So we'll say Jason Doe, the child's birth date, say 2019, and the parent. And when it says parent, it wants to know which of the two parties are the parents. So you don't need to put the name of the other father or the other mother. You need to put the name of which spouse in this marriage. Is the child yours or your spouse's? So then I'm just going to put, that'll be Jane Doe listed there. And again, if there are multiple other children, you'll list multiple other children. Yes, so we've got all that. If you're not sure, so we find that sometimes when there are other children born during the marriage, people don't know that information. They go, I know they had a child, or my friend tells me maybe they have a child, but I don't know that information. Put as much as you know. If you know the child's name, put the child's name. If you know the date of birth, you know the date of birth. If you know there is a child, even if you don't know anything about it, I would put unknown on each of these lines and then put the parent. So if we know Jane has a child, but we don't know the birthday or the name, we would just put unknown and unknown, but with Jane as the parent. And again, if there were no other children born to either party during the marriage, check none. And again, just to emphasize, because this is one of those issues we see a lot, this is while you were married. So you do not need to include children that were born to the other person with another parent before you got married. This is just children that were born from the day you got married until now. Down here, if you filled in an other minor child, so we listed this child of Jane Doe's, it wants to know if paternity has been established. So if you know there was a court case, maybe if Jane were filling this out and she knows that she went to court and established that somebody other than John Doe, her husband, was the father, then we would say yes, and we would include the information about what county that case happened in and the case number. And the case number is really important here. So if you are able to get that, you really do want to get that. If you know for certain or you're pretty sure it hasn't been established, then you will just go ahead and you will check no over here. And again, if you know it's been established, but you're not sure about the details, we would recommend getting those details if you can, because really important information to have. Number 4 wants to know if the minor children have lived in Wisconsin with a parent for the last 6 months. And so again, that's from today, counting back 6 months. If yes, you'll check yes. If no, you'll put no. Here you're going to put the current address for the minor children. One challenge I know that people find is they'll say, well, they live with both of us. We tend to say if there's one place they stay more, so if they stay with you 49% of the time and the other parent 51%, then probably put where they spend the most time. If it's truly 50-50, some people will, they'll list both this way. So, we could list John's address here then. Drive, and then doing the slashes. In an ideal world, though, again, we like to, if we can, just pick one. And so who they spend the most time with is typically what we do there. And the zip code. Previous addresses. So here, if the kids have lived somewhere other than this address in the last 5 years, you're going to list that address here. Even if they lived there with you, you're still going to list that previous address. If there were none, you just check none. But if you and your kids moved 2 years ago or 3 years ago, you'll list that old address. And maybe that was in Milwaukee as well. Wisconsin. Some people will go, it's been 5 years, I don't know. Again, if you can obtain that information, do you have an old email with it? Do you have anything that might still have that information? If so, put that in. If not, put as much as you know. So if you know the city state, put that. If you know it was on Old Address Way, but you don't know the numbers, again, do that. So put as much as you know. Number 7 wants to know if currently or if in the last 5 years any of the minor children have lived with a person other than the parent. So this doesn't include like if your mother lives with you, that doesn't count, or your friend lives with you, but they want to know, did they live with somebody other than a parent? So did they have a guardian, or were they living with their grandparents and the parents weren't there in the house? So if so, you'll check yes. You'll put the name of the child, so whichever child this applies to. You're going to put the person who they lived with. So we'll say they lived with their aunt, Jessica Doe, and you're going to put an address for that person. And you'll put the city, state, zip here as well. So if you don't know this information, because we do find that sometimes people don't know where the guardian lives, or maybe in extreme circumstances they may not know the guardian's name, then you're just going to put as much as you can find. So again, ideally we want to get all this information, so if you have it somewhere, we would recommend getting it and filling it in. But if you just cannot find this information, as much as you know about the person that the minor child lived with. And again, if the child didn't live with anyone other than a parent, you'll just check no. And if you have, again, if in this situation I just said one child had, but maybe another one did, you could do that there as well. 8 just wants to know if you are aware of any past court proceedings about paternity, custody, physical placement, visitation, any of that for the children you and your spouse have together, or for these other minor children that were born. So if I had checked yes here, I would list that case here as well. Or for some people, maybe they weren't married when their children were first born, and so they had a paternity case that went through the courts. That would go here as well. And again, the name of the court is usually just the county. You'll put the case number for the case, and the date that case was filed, or the date of the last order, sort of whichever you prefer there. Number 9 is if you know of any other court cases that might impact this one. So if there's a restraining order between you, or there's been a domestic violence, maybe a criminal domestic violence case, if you have a termination of parental rights case, or an adoption case, or any of those sorts of children's court cases, that sort of thing would go here. And so if so, you would again check yes. And so here maybe there's a Milwaukee County Children's Court. And you'll usually list these, you may list these even if they've ended, just because it's safer to sort of have that information down there. And so maybe this, again. And obviously these numbers won't be the same. I'm not wanting to put a real case number because that would be assigned to real people. So our fictional number is the same for both of these cases. But in your situation, you wouldn't be listing the same case over and over. They would, and maybe this would be a guardianship. So like that. And then you would just put what it was. So maybe it was a guardianship case, or termination of parental rights, or whatever that might be. And then last but not least, we have number 10. 10 is where it wants to know if you have any written agreements or court orders about spousal support, about child support, about custody, placement, anything like that. If you had a prenup, that would go here, all that sort of stuff. So if you did have those things, you would check yes, and you'll attach a copy of the written agreement if there's a written agreement. If you didn't have anything like that, you'll check no. And then that is all for filling out this form. Down here, you'll go ahead and you'll fill in your name, your address, your email, and your phone number. Don't need to put a state bar number because unless you're an attorney, you don't need to have that information. And then you'll make sure that when you print this out, it needs to be signed in front of a notary. All right, well, that is all for the petition. I will be back shortly in a different video series to talk about the confidential petition addendum, but that is all for this one. Thank you all for watching. I hope that it was helpful. If it wasn't, you can always come in to ask more questions at our Milwaukee County Courthouse location. But that is all for now. Thank you for watching, and I hope you all go out and represent yourselves well.